Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. Just in case, guys, I'm going to put the link of the song I'm listening to for those interested. They could just play it in the background of the talk. I wanted to speak about the future's future. You know, I've thought about the future. I've considered the future of many things, many different types of objects. Uh, Myself as an object, the world as an object, even the myself as a subject, the future, the idea of me, and even the future of the idea of the world. But one thing I have not considered its future is legitimately, like actually the future. What is the future of the concept of future? You see, there's this idea that the future was a discovery. This was something that was very profound that I heard from Jordan Peterson, that he was saying that it was as if people didn't have a sense of preparation for the future. They weren't even thinking about the future. It was just continuous. Think of from the primitiveness of the caveman. Do you know? Just momentary engagement and no question of what else there could be. So we can say when human beings realize they can consider a future, they can prepare for their future. And once they even consider certain futures uh, alongside from their survivability, it's as if like so many errors can be avoided by just noticing something from the future, really. Let's say you want to go to the bank, you don't know what time it opens in the morning, so you check it. Now, after you've checked it, you have a certainty about a future that still hasn't come yet. That means right now, in this moment, I can have an opinion on any opinion on the future, or I can say I can be uncertain about the future, or I can entertain a probability of certainty. It is true that there was a time where there was no language. Now, whether the creature had a sense of the future, just couldn't conceptualize it, like, a person has reflexes. We can say that instinctually we might have been preparing for the future. The species, the creature has been adapting prior to a conscious identity. pretty much before language, before conscious containment of the events of nature, it was one event that is the most basic. From this one experience of one event, that means before there was a self in a world, the world and the self, before being separately conceived as forms, were one form. You know, we become aware of the world, conscious of the physical realm, way before we can interpret it, give it meaning, or notice it through a context. It's as if the way life is designed is the concept arises, and then the concept has a potential to perceive the context, but the context is there. So we can say that it's like, okay, let me see how would I draw this out. We have a concept, we have the context. The concept was first unconscious. You know, we should see it like this, where imagine life is going from attention being on the concept and then being the context of the moment. That means we used to be the world. We are like a wave in an ocean, a self. We have conceptualized, and then when we return to the world, we become contextualized. So it's kind of like concept, context, concept, context, concept, context. You're a self in a specific world. Either the self has to change or the context has to change. If the person consciously lives life, they can change the concept that they are. If the person doesn't do anything and just waits in life, that's the context changing the concept. So we can say we are concepts that haven't realized there is an inner context that can allow us to change the outer concept. You know, let's draw a stick figure with a giant. Let's draw a giant circle and then make that into a stick figure. Okay. Now, let's add a nose on the right side. Let's just add a triangle to the right side of the circle. So we have the nose and the face of the stick figure. Now, I wish I could show this to people. Pretty much draw a stick figure with a giant head face towards the right. If you give it a nose, then it's going to be faced towards the right. Now, if you draw a line straight from outside of the circle and you draw pretty much, I want to say that in front of your eyes, You are a physical concept. And the context is also physical. But behind your eyes, the concept is simultaneous with the physical. We feel we're still the same self. And the world, the context of the inner realms is unknown. That means we know where our physical body is, and we can see the world where that body is in, but behind your eyes, you can notice there's a self. You can close your eyes and notice the self is the subjective self is there, but the world of that subjective self changes by the whim of your attention. So when reality is multidimensional in this way, the future's future, in some sense, dismantles in the sense that what we thought was the outer realm future doesn't have a context in the inner realm. Sorry guys, this was on mute. And I was just talking. Pretty much the future's future is a return back into a state where there was no idea of a future. When we look at everything that is separate to the conscious viewer, as if right now as I'm speaking to you, I'm a moment of attention. Literally. That means before my name, before my story, before who I am just energetic presence in an instant. I am existence. Inseparable from all of it. I am existence. But when it comes to the experiencer has choice. So we realize that if it would kind of be meaningless if there was no choice, I would say. Think as if like you created, you had this reminds me of my childhood, but imagine that your grandmother, you're a little kid, and your grandmother has many guests coming, to visit the home, and she's cooking different kinds of food. Now, as she's cooking different kinds of food, imagine all the guests come and they eat only one of the food. All the other foods that remain on the table uneaten, only one of the food is ate. Now, that would be a situation where, if there was no free will, what would the point of variation be? That means there needs the design of existence requires the experiencer. Without the experiencer, it doesn't make sense. I would say it's not that our minds are made for the world. The world is made for an unknown mind. That means I find the error that we feel our intelligence is the effect, our animate intelligence is the effect of an inanimate cause is I find to be the error. This doesn't mean the person has to attach or identify with a sort of archetypal divine agency. I'm just saying that when we look at the realm, there is existence just on a pure level. The experience, like an on and off switch in a room, like a light switch in a room, is going on and off, and this cutting up of this existential film leads to fragments and frames of self. And these frames of self, the moment they focus on that, on a single frame, then you have endless time. That means imagine before you came to see imagine the handles of the clock were moving so fast, the handles on your watch, that you couldn't see the time. Or the moment you came to see something, it would change. Or the moment, just like the Midas touch, the Midas touch, where I believe it's in Greek myth, there's this King Midas, where anything he touches turns into gold, and it drives him crazy. And of course, anybody who's tuning in, really, this episode is a bit light. It's just, I'm trying to give a commentary on where I feel all of existence and reality is going. The future is the answer. That means when you look at everything in the moment, you know where its destination is. Its destination is that the forces, the natural forces in a changing world, will change the position. You know, I feel that the ability, there was something strange. They say beliefs are to believe something or disbelieve something. It's as if there is somebody comes and tells you there's a golden elephant behind you, and the person's hasn't turned around, and the person's like, okay, I believe you. Yeah, sure, there's a golden elephant there, you know? Or the person's like, no, there is no golden elephant. Existence is here. And we are wondering, what is the future? But existence is here. You know, it's the same mystery of wondering if energy cannot be created or destroyed. But it can change from one form to another. It's as if there is a location that cannot change. As if, let us see energy in the sense of a location that cannot change, and then there are locations that endlessly change. An unchanging location, which is impossible to fathom. We know nothing else other than a changing world. And that thing I was saying about beliefs. To believe or disbelieve that there's a golden elephant behind you doesn't help you. The only thing that helps you is turning around. And what that means is, in this life, there's endless waves of information hitting you. The person may not see it, but this information is coming from how the sensory perception is being extracted from the environment. That means the world is speaking to you, but it speaks to you in the fragments that you can receive. That means it's, in some sense, not only just an antenna situation, but the signal needs to be responded to. Man cannot stay silent to the realm. We think of a sense of a past self to the individual, right? The person remembers who they were 10 years ago. You know, the person is knowing who they are directly right now, and then they can try to fathom or wonder about who they will be in the future. So if we were to treat the world as having a memory, as if the planet, let us say, is like a self, is like a bigger self, and this self has a memory of its past self, which it can influence it. And let us wonder if it has a memory, or not a memory, but a visualization of the future. One thing that human beings have not considered is literally, in ancient times they did, now we have forgotten the guideline, or we're resurfacing to it. Can you imagine this planet suddenly remembering how it was in, for example, oh my God, imagine like this. Imagine the planet was like a person you could speak to, but it wasn't a person, it was just a planet. Okay? Now this planet was asked a question. Let's say Jupiter asked Earth a question. And Jupiter asked Earth, who were you 10 million years ago? Or who were you 1,000 years ago? Or who were you 100 years ago? In order for the planet to answer, it would have to resurface the memory. It could be that what we have considered to be God is a living planet. To the conscious individual. Because when you think about communication, what can a person communicate to? You can either communicate to people, you can communicate to people outside, you can communicate to institutions, organizations, bigger structured entities, You can even communicate to your, let us say, world. And let's say you can communicate to yourself before actually the world. You can communicate to yourself. You can communicate to the planet. All of these are there. You can communicate to animals, other species. You can communicate to plant life. Now, in the yogic context, this is very rare, and there's barely anything written on it, I think. You can communicate to emptiness. There are some who are known to be allies with the void. That means you don't fear an ally. You are strengthened by it. To communicate to space, one must consider that just like the human form empathizes with the human form, the space, you can't communicate to space as a form. Attention is really such a big mystery that it endlessly leads language into the outer realms. It endlessly moves in the outer realms, but at the same time, it knows its limit. When I wonder why the world has a design, if there was no eyes, no biological eyes, it could be for eyes unseen. That means, imagine like somebody creates an art gallery. Or let's say a billionaire goes to an art gallery, builds an art gallery just for the billionaire wants to just for himself, let's say. Just builds a giant art gallery for himself. Now, I mean, this isn't a good example, but let me see. Color would be meaningless without the evolutionary design of the eyes. And so if the world was here, I'm just saying that it's there is probably like invisible audiences. Just like how I'm giving a talk and I have no idea who's listening to this talk from the world. Similarly, I find it's the same, that the whole species is acting in a certain way, not realizing that there is way more here, you know? And when we look at the creative urge, it is a relay. Creativity is kind of like a big bang of its own. There is something being connected, certain dots are being connected, and then there is a new idea's emergence. Novelty, the voidhood, and stillness. These three are the giant mysteries of the realm. That means any person goes, studies these three, tries to philosophically explore these three ideas, you will be the innovator of the future. Because all these three can't become conceptualized. Stillness may be, but inner stillness is not a concept. There's no such thing. That means verbs and nouns, sure, in front of your eyes, yeah. But if you were to wonder about the nature of your attention and your awareness, verbs and nouns don't apply. At best, in your inner realms, if you really want to move in the inner space, it's geometrical shapes are easy. Like I've experienced that a couple times. What I mean by that is that the future is the idea of time, and behind our eyes there is no object to have reference points of, for it to be have time, for it to have time to be an idea. And really, the cyclical existence, the cyclical nature of the realm, that's a giant clue. Following the existential clues towards experience's truth. Sometimes I wonder if we are made of elements. It's as if we are never here. It's as if we are emptiness's dream. The pen writes letters but has nothing to do with the meaning of the letters. And we can say to exist may have nothing to do with the true nature of our experience. It could surpass our existence. We can say the future exists for the human being. Because if, like, let's say 70% of the human body is water, so let's say 70%, let's see space as an ocean, and let's say 70% of the cosmos is space. And that would imply that we can only see a future to 30%. That means everything we are scared about or the person loves, everything is just the tip of the iceberg of the observable universe. That means nobody can know or have an index of everything to have ultimate certainty. This means all confidence is a risk. Living is a risk. We are risking every moment for every moment. Materialism literally takes you nowhere. Immaterialism figuratively takes you nowhere. Man is left in the moment, and everything that we know is potential. You know, I would see in certain martial arts movies when I was young, and just in simply martial artists, you would see that there was a sort of rhythm, that it wasn't just blindly or robotically practicing technique, that after some point a new intensity to the moment and to the same practice would emerge and the person would adapt to the rhythm. You know, the difference between someone who has a lot of knowledge on fighting with a sword and someone who's been into many battles. That means it's like to be a good swordsman is not to know what the sword is, it's to know what to do with the sword, for example. You know, it's to have an attention to the battlefield. There's so many factors beyond any moment of certainty that really what can we be certain of? Everything is just being good enough to get to the next moment, really. And of course, I'm one person fathoming this. Aristotle says it's the sign of an educated mind to entertain an idea without accepting it. And perhaps that's the issue, that we're accepting the idea of what reality is too soon and denying any other sort of different angular or different dimensional search. You know, sometimes if you really see things as pure materialistic, then it's the ultimate permission for abstraction. That means emptiness what can it do aside from novelty? Novelty is what emptiness does. I could say emptiness and novelty are two sides of the same coin. Or I'll tell you this is an incredible metaphor. I don't think anyone's ever used this. But imagine there's two sides of a coin. One side is Brahman, one side is Shiva. Brahman, the creator archetype, Shiva, the destroyer archetype. And then, you know how, like, imagine a coin was somehow fell on neither sides and somehow it fell right on the middle. Imagine a coin that's like on it standing on a table, but from the middle part. That middle part is Vishnu. I would say Vishnu, technically Brahman, at least in my view, Brahman and Shiva, I consider to be inside Vishnu. I think that was the case. Hold on, guys. Let me double check this. Let's see where the gods are hanging out. Oh, there we go. So it says, respectively, these first three actions are associated with Shiva, akin to Brahma. Yeah. So so the two sides of the coin are correct. Vamadeva akin to Vishnu, and Agora akin to Rudra. Thus, Brahman, Vishnu, and Rudra are not deities different from Shiva, but rather are forms of Shiva. As Brahma, Shiva creates. Yeah, guys, it's different texts have different relationships. Ultimately, Krishna is the whole, it seems. Yeah. So one is saying Vishnu and Shiva are different forms of Brahman. Another is saying Vishnu and Brahman are different forms of Shiva, and probably there's one Shiva and Brahman that's different forms of Vishnu. So yeah, it's yeah. So it works out, guys. It works out. You know, if we didn't have form, we couldn't ask the question of purpose. It's only because there is content in our attention that there's something to do. That's it. You know, it's like sometimes I think about it and I'm like, all right, when I wake up in the morning, it's been a while since I know that feeling. But I'll tell you, it's like when I wake up in the morning, it's as if there is, I've said in other talks, there's a sort of binary feeling 0 1 in the sense that effort and non effort. And it's pretty much like existence is effort that you didn't put, but it's there. So when one harmonizes with the realm, they feel it's their effort, you know? Pretty much existence is imagination that you don't need to imagine. And experience is existence that you require to input. Require to put there. That means these words that I'm saying right now, these are like efforts. That means think as if like you're typing on a keyboard. It's like that's each key has an influence. You know. I'm pretty sure Friedrich Nietzsche, there was a point that he started writing on a typewriter and his philosophies and everything became cold. But I'm pretty sure there was a moment where he's like, yo, could I be a typewriter for higher dimensions? I would say 50% of the world is fiction. 50% of it is here. The difference between that fiction and that nonfiction is how much of it requires conscious participation. You know, from a theological view, you can look at every generation and feel they are like the film crew, and the creator is the director, And the film crew is setting up the scene for the next generations, for the actors of the next generation. You know, so there is this view that life is an artwork and it's not finished yet, you know, and the notion that there is a sort of apocalypse, it's as if that's the finishing of the artwork. You know, sometimes the ending of a system is the completion of a system. You cannot complete the system if it's endless, you know. That means an end is as necessary as the beginning, and it's a very natural thing, but we of course have emotional attachments to sudden absence. In front of my eyes, the future is something we gotta design, really. Behind my eyes, there can't be a future. Future to what? If we don't know ourselves, how can we want to be something, really? Imagine if civilization was flipped. Imagine that people were going to the educational system rather than to get knowledge. Imagine everybody knew everything. Everybody knew everything, and people went to actually learn how to not know things. And by what was the value in it? So right now, for example, we have, what is it? Like a med school student's tuition is like $200,000 or something. So we have like 200,000 for specific, of course, skill and knowledge. Now, I'm trying to think in a reverse universe, in the opposite reverse of this, it would be like the person's paying $200,000 to not know. Imagine if it was the opposite. And then to not know would mean you have become different. Because if everybody knows everything, we are the same being. But if we have unknown dimensions, then we can still exist as separate individuals. That means too much knowledge is unification. That means I sometimes feel that certain theoretical physicists who are looking for a certain equation that's going to capture everything, it's as if deep down I don't think they want that equation. That equation would stop the search. I should have written experiential reality's destination. Because existence is just here. It's the experience of individualism where we fathom or wonder about what's going to happen to this individual. Oh my God, is it going to go to a better place? Or is it just going to leave from the individual station of experience? That means, honestly, existence is energy and experience is going from potential to kinetic, potential to kinetic, potential to kinetic. Now, in Buddhist thought, they caught onto this pattern, they called it reincarnation. Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. Wouldn't it be interesting if you could touch a tree? I wrote this in one of my science fiction novels where this extraterrestrial comes to Earth and it touches a tree. And the moment it touches the tree, it gets access to the memory of the whole planet. Everything that has happened so far, in an instant. Imagine human technology gets so advanced that in the future they actually have a tree of knowledge. This digital, incredibly advanced technology that's designed like the shape of a tree, and anybody who touches that technology instantly gets an information transfer at such a high speed of like ridiculous amount of content. You know, there's a person named Elon Musk. He has a company called Neuralink where they're trying to connect the human brain to a sort of cyberspace destination for consciousness. Now, when Elon Musk was asked, I don't remember exactly how he worded it, but it was like he said, we need people to try to make that interface for the people who want to go into the, let's say you want to connect somebody's head and have them experience like cyberspace. It would be something where I would say we cannot successfully, for the sake of our human psychologies, go through cyberspace until we can identify with attributeless viewer. Until there's that attributeless unknown viewer, there would be incredible psychological turbulence. So what I'm trying to say is that emptiness would be the main thing. That if the individual, before entering or putting on the cyberspace instrument, could experience itself as emptiness, then there would be a sort of, you know, easy transfer of attention from body. So right now we're a human being with one body. We have one mind for one body. But imagine you, right now we're existing in like 7 other bodies. Imagine like an individual with 7 human beings. 7 human beings could be the same mind. you know? Really it's the future of nowhere has become now here, and the future of what is now here is going to become nowhere. There's this term, they say no man's land. From a mystical context, even though in modern times I think it has different context, but like from a mystical context, if we were to think about that, no man's land would be as if no self a world where there is life, but there isn't containment of self, either through object-based means or subject-based means. And I will say my ultimate conclusion through all these years, so far in this lifetime, is that there is something essential about the unknown remaining unknown. That means I would say the unknown is the peak of knowledge. And then beyond that, it's no longer about taking, it becomes about service giving. The future's future is a void beginning. Most likely, guys, I will make this part one, and maybe in the future, in the future's future, do it part two in the, even the future of that. I feel the two most important words: nature knows. Thanks for listening. Blessings.